Welcome to the Lead Clinic. I'm your host, Dr. Peter Vitale, and today's one of the guests we have on is one I've been most excited to bring to you because not only is he a technology solution provider whose solution we use here and is very valuable for Lead Clinic clients, but I'm honored to call him a friend, and I'll do a short story as I'm introducing you, Jaimie. But Jaimie Pickles is a heck of a guy and a stand-up guy who I would say one person who is most responsible for what I'm doing today in lead generation is Jaimie, because Jaimie's just a genuinely nice human, and really at LeadsCon one year really kind of took me under his wing and introduced me to people that would have probably not given me the time of day otherwise. So Jaimie, it's important for me to tell you that, and it's important for me to share with the audience too, because we can never underestimate the impact that we have on other humans, right? And so I want to thank you for that, because you've truly been a great friend and now a great partner in this journey. So thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm an honor to sit in with you. My side of the story to that story is I got a fortune that morning that said, do something kind to somebody for no reason whatsoever. So you were lucky that day. You ended up, being on the good end of that, because normally I'm not that nice. But you were, when we first started talking, Peter. I was obviously very impressed with your background and what you were talking about wanting to accomplish in the space, which really rang true to me and what I've been working on in this space for a long time, and wanted to help you, get there as quickly as you possibly could, regardless of whether we ended up doing business together or not. It was a lot of fun. I was feeding off of your energy, enthusiasm, and your vision. So.
Well, I love it, Jaimie, and I appreciate that, and I think that is a testament to what we've talked about on other episodes of this podcast, which is creating true partnerships, right? This isn't, we can look at relationships as transactional, but when we build actual partnerships with the vendors that we use, whether it's an insurance agency or whatever, that's the most important way to really, be successful in this. And I'm proud to say that we have that relationship. And Jaimie, you've, as I came in to record this episode, I did an Instagram story on my drive over, and I talked about we're recording 2 episodes today. And I know that's not going to make a lot of sense for folks who are watching this podcast, but because of my crazy travel schedule, we record like 2 of these every few weeks. So we can release them, on a regular schedule for you. But as I was coming here, Jaimie, I said into the camera on that Instagram story, I consider Jaimie, I didn't say who it was going to be, but I said, I consider the person I'm going to be interviewing, one of the OGs of lead generation. And Jaimie, you've had a long history in this business. Will you briefly kind of tell us, about that journey and where you've been along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would say I'm on your Mount Rushmore of lead gen? Is that what you're saying?
In a much more polite way, though. Yeah.
That's an honor. Well, so my entire career has been in insurance, Peter, and it was a career that I didn't choose. I actually, accidentally dropped into it, and loved it from the very beginning. It's a fascinating, complex, exciting, always changing, sector. Not that I had a lot of exposure to other sectors, but it was by luck and chance that I fell into insurance right out of college in consulting. And I was in management consulting for about 10 years. And focused on the insurance industry. It was a boutique consulting firm that focused on actuarial science assignments for mostly carriers, but also MGAs and captives and whatnot. And I ended up kind of leaning into distribution, sales, and marketing in the personal line space, personal lines P&C. So it was like a really very quick dive into a really kind of narrow, what seemingly was a narrow part of the insurance industry, but ends up, it's very meaningful and lots to do. And again, very exciting and always changing and challenging. So I did that. And then we started, or I got interested in what ultimately became the internet when I first noticed a few new companies popping up, like called CompuServe and AOL and Prodigy. I don't know if you know any of those words.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm old enough to remember those slightly, yes.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I started, searching for insurance on it, and there was nothing there. And I said, this is like really a potentially game-changing thing that's happening here. So started really kind of focusing on that part of the equation. And a colleague of mine at Tillinghast, which was the consulting firm, Tillinghast Towers parent, ended up getting hired, getting an assignment with a company called InsWeb Corporation in like 1996 or something like that. It was about a year-old company, and they were starting to move into what they called the lead business through the internet. And I remember the day they were so excited. It was early '97. They had just signed a distribution deal with Yahoo, and they were like, all crazy about that and excited, which ended up being pretty meaningful to the company. And about a year, 15 months later, they hired both of us to join. So that was in early '99. And we went public that summer when it was hot, internet IPOs were hot, and you could raise a ton of money and not give away a lot of equity. And we were the kind of the insurance player in the internet that had lots of money and lots of exposure. SoftBank was an investor. Nationwide, CNA and American Family were all investors, early investors. So we went public, and then the internet proceeded to burst. The internet bubble bursted in the spring of 2000, and we had to kind of retrench and restructure, and we were spending $5 million a month on TV advertising.
Wow!
And our burn rate was pretty high. We had if we'd have kept on that path, we would have been out of business in 4 or 5 months. But at any rate, so we retrenched and kind of refocused, and decided that we needed to get to profitability. And flash forward in I think it was Q4 2007. So it took us that long to get to profitability. Wow. We finally did it. InsWeb was the very first online insurance marketplace where consumers could fill out a form, and we would match them with carriers and agents through, mostly data leads. But we ended up in '03. We were the first to start the clicks part of the business, because we learned that, as a consumer came through our form funnel, we realized that we didn't have very good monetization for a certain segment of them. So what we did is we asked a few questions up front, and we decided, instead of letting them go down the path to generate a data lead, we just show some ads, and consumers could click on it, and we'd get paid on clicks. So we were the very first click platform as well. And then I said, well, we should put a phone number in there and have calls go directly to the carriers. And so we ended up doing consumer initiated calls first as well. So we were pioneers in a lot of the kind of the things that you see today, including aggregation. We were working very closely with NetQuote to help monetize each lead more. We would sell leads to, carriers and agents. We had direct relationships, and then we'd send it over to NetQuote and say, hey, do you have a nationwide agent, or do you have a farmer's agent, or whatever that you can sell this to? So we both ended up, making a lot more money by sharing leads together. And that was the very kind of the dawn of the, the aggregation ecosystem that we know and love today, where leads are flying all over the place on the ping, and trying to find a home and monetization and whatnot. So then we ended up selling the company to Bankrate Insurance, or to Bankrate, and then I went off and almost immediately found a company called LeadID that was doing something really interesting that I felt was really important, because around 2010-11, the lead gen space was very, very toxic. And it was on the way to literally killing itself. There were so many bad actors playing. It was impossible to know where did this lead get generated, how old is it, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole notion of legitimacy and intent was something that needed to be solved for. And I met Ross Shankin, who is the founder of LeadID, now Jaimie, and Verus Marketing Services. But at any rate, so I said, this is really important, and it's going to be something that will ultimately end up saving the space. And then the TCPA laws got stricter in 2013. So since we were witnessing the form, we could confirm that the consumer consented to be contacted. So we really solved a lot of issues with respect to fraud and TCPA consent with that technology. So that was a lot of fun, and we ended up really cleaning up the space for the better of everybody, right? So the legitimate lead generators and aggregators, and then obviously the lead buyers, all benefited from that. So we sold Jaimie to Verus in December of 2020, and then I stuck around for a little bit longer. But then left and founded First Interpreter, which is the company that I currently operate. So that's been my journey.
That's your journey. Before we get into First Interpreter, which we want to spend a lot of time talking about today, Jaimie, I want to talk a little bit about your time at Jaimie and LeadID, because I did not know 2 years ago what Jaimie was or what it meant or anything about it as an insurance agent, right? And the way that I view it, and one of the principal, the foundation, or as I often say, the rock upon which Lead Clinic is built, is transparency. I'm here to bring transparency to this space. And I didn't know what these companies did or what they were, but they provide very valuable metrics on if a lead is legitimate, not legitimate, how old it is, how long the consumer was on the form, and a number of other intent-based, metrics. And at Lead Clinic, we're transparent with our clients. We share them if they ask for that. We share them that data, no problem, because we want them to be confident in what they're buying. So from your perspective, Jaimie, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. And as I always tell everyone on these, right, I didn't give you any questions before. This is just your honest feedback on this, is why do you think, insurance carriers obviously know about these tools and utilize them because, they have huge marketing budgets and they're sophisticated buyers, because when you have that kind of capital and that kind of budget, you can be very sophisticated, and I'm happy that they are. But insurance agents generally don't know these solutions exist. And I think it's because no one's forced them. No one's forced anyone to, talk about this. And it's kind of what I'm trying to do here with Lead Clinic, is let's talk about transparency. Let's talk about, these things. And I'm hoping that I kind of force a lot of my competitors to have to open up and provide these metrics and data points back to their agents as well. But why do you think that transparency hasn't trickled down to the agents yet? Is it because no one else has forced it?
Well, I think it's principally because we didn't target the local agent for our business. Our business model was built for large, entities who were looking at and buying, hundreds of thousands of leads a year.
Yeah.
We didn't deliberately at any point in time go down the path of aiming our solution in a way that the local agent could leverage it. We just didn't get there. So what we did was we partnered with a handful of aggregators who would leverage this data on behalf of their agents. So the agents really never really kind of knew what was going on. It was always, the data was always there in some places, but the agent, had no idea. They just said, hey, these leads are better than these leads.
Yep.
Because these aggregators, and there weren't many of them that we did this with, but they did things like what you said, which is, how old is this lead? The technology sits on every web page where a consumer's filling out a lead form and is capturing all the data around that lead event. It's and it has like a VIN number for that lead. So you can at any point in time look at a lead. It's called a LeadID. It's a 36 alphanumeric GUID. You could query with that LeadID and get data back on that lead event. So things like you said, how old is this lead? When did the consumer fill this lead form out? Was it seconds ago or was it months ago? And how long did they spend on the form? Was it 4 minutes or was it 2 seconds? Well, you can see where just those two metrics, and there are many more, as you said, are really big indicators of intent. Because if a consumer just filled it out and they spent 3 or 4 minutes, seriously filling out the form, that's a really qualified lead. And that's what that data can be leveraged for, is to measure in advance before you bid on a lead or buy a lead, the intent of that consumer. And don't keep in mind also that kind of another really important aspect of buying leads is knowing that the consumer consented to be contacted by phone call or by text. That is table stakes. If you aren't able to do that with your leads, you're heading for big trouble. So since the technology sat on the web form, they could see what the consumer read, what they did around that TCPA consent. And then even so, when a lead buyer would check all those boxes, they'd get a high intent lead, TCPA compliant lead, they'd still get inquiries from attorneys. There were some class action lawsuits that we saw. So since the technology saw all that, captured all that, and stores all that, it's available to show. So you could say, okay, here's a consumer, go grab the consent evidence. And we would provide them with a whole TCPA report, have all sorts of metrics around the lead event, and an actual video of the consumer marching through the lead form. It's called visual playback. But anyway, so all those things are critically important. Most agents don't understand that some of that's going on. For example, there are some large captive agency carriers that are buying all that information from Journia for every lead that their agents are purchasing. So a lot of the carriers do it on behalf of their agents just to keep them out of trouble. Because if they have 15,000 agents, they can't say, hey, 15,000 agents, make sure you do all this stuff. Well, you know how that goes, right? With agents aren't always, doing everything they should be all the time, or in a way that, the carrier requires. So the carrier is doing that on behalf of the agent. So the captive agent, all they know is they're getting some really nice leads.
Exactly right. And to that point, I will say that, any agent that works with Lead Clinic, we'll provide them those data points as well, because we truly believe that transparency is important in this space. And now that folks know this stuff is available, it's really important what you're doing, not just for independent agents who there really isn't any one carrier out there that's watching over and helping the independent agents, right? So independent agents need this. And even the captive agents, a lot of them don't buy through the company sponsored platform or program. They go outside and do their own thing. So when they do step outside of that safe environment that the carrier has created for them to do things on their own, they still need that protection. And to make sure that the lead's legitimate, the consumer has intent and has consented to be contacted. So it's really important what you're doing for your agent customers. Well, thank you, Jaimie. Yeah, this is a passion of mine, and being transparent like this is the key, and I think will truly be the differentiator between Lead Clinic and our competitors. But Jaimie, what we really first met, you were already at First Interpreter. I found that to be a fascinating idea that you've created here. And I'm proud to say that Lead Clinic is now officially a First Interpreter partner, and we offer this service to all of our clients now. So tell us a little bit about it, because I really truly believe that our listening audience, this will be the one that truly blows them away at what is possible. So tell us a little bit about First Interpreter from your perspective, Jaimie.
Well, first of all, thank you for all those kind words. That means a lot coming from you. I'll kind of step back in time, just kind of explain how I arrived at First Interpreter. So when we were at InsWeb, we were really early in the early days. We were on a quest, or had a vision for, trying to make the consumer experience near perfect. Because before the internet, if a consumer wanted to shop, they'd have to, go to different agencies. They'd have to make multiple phone calls. It was really, really difficult to have a true shopping journey for auto and home insurance, or even life or health for that matter. So we really felt what we were doing was very important. Somewhere along the way, we kind of lost track of that vision, and we're focusing on monetization, and trying to get as much money per lead as we possibly could, which means sell that lead as many times as you possibly can. And then that kind of led to things really going off the tracks with respect to quality, et cetera. So what we thought in those early days to make that near perfect consumer experience was important, not just for the consumer, but also for the agent and the carrier, right? So if you create a good experience for the consumer and you do a good job of matching them with the right insurance providers, everybody should win, right? The lead generator, the marketplace, and the lead buyer. Really what we created early on was the ability for an agent or a carrier to focus in on their target market. What zip codes do they want? What products do they want? What kind of consumer demographics are they looking for? Risk characteristics are they looking for? What is their target market? And you can do that very easily with filters, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really one key component of matching the right consumer with the right insurance provider, right? You don't want to send somebody with 5 DUIs to Liberty Mutual, right? So you want to find an agent that specializes in the pure non-standard consumer. So those filters are really important, and kind of one of 3 key components of delivering that near perfect experience. The second one was what we were talking about a minute ago with LeadID / Journia in fixing the problems that we had created ourselves just because we were focusing on monetization, right? So Journia came in, and we really kind of cleaned up, and we answered 2 really important questions. Does this consumer have consent to be contacted from a TCPA perspective? And are they truly on a journey and have high intent to get a quote from insurance providers? So that's the second key component of delivering a near perfect consumer experience. The third and final component, once a consumer passes all of those tests, the only last remaining question is, in order to answer the question, are we making the right matches here, is who's the most competitive, or who has a competitive price for that consumer? Because as you know, about 8 times out of 10, when you give a consumer a quote for auto or home insurance, they don't buy. Yep. And 9 times out of 10 for those consumers, it's because of price. It's not a competitive price. It's either more than they're currently paying, and or more than they're getting from the quotes they're getting from other carriers and agents in their journey. So it does nobody any good to match a consumer with an uncompetitively priced insurance provider. Now, it doesn't have to be the lowest priced insurance provider. Consumers value other things other than price, right? So absolutely, they value the agent, they value the brand, they value location. There are lots of different things that consumer values beyond price. So you don't always have to be the lowest price of all the competitors. You just have to be competitive, right? So
Yep.
what we did with First Interpreter early on was answer that question for major insurance providers. And we do that by taking some of the data from the consumer, no PII, and we rate all the top insurance carriers for that product in that state based on where, zip code, type of car, driving experience, age, gender, marital status, credit, all the important variables that drive rate. And then we take that list of carrier prices that we have, and we can do a lot with that, right? If we're a marketplace or an aggregator, we can curate the list of insurance providers that we introduce that consumer to. Say, rather than sending it to 8 carriers on that list, you send it to 3 or 4 of the most competitively priced carriers. And then the carrier or the agent can use it to decide whether they want to buy a lead, click, or call or not. We're answering that question of, what is my competitive position, or who are the most competitively priced insurance providers? And that helps deliver that last and third component of those important questions around who should we match this consumer with to deliver, that near perfect consumer experience. And when you do that, obviously, the insurance provider's performance is going to be better as well.
Absolutely.
We found quote to close rates that are influenced by First Interpreter data are somewhere between 30 and 50% higher than on leads that aren't influenced by First Interpreter data. And the data can be used in a couple of different ways. You could use it for filtering or you can use it for deciding how much you want to bid for a lead.
Yep.
So optimizing that bid is another kind of use case. And then beyond that, once the consumer is in your funnel, your competitive position can help influence your follow-up with that consumer and how you treat that consumer once they're in your funnel. Obviously, you're going to want to spend more time and money on contacting a consumer where you have a very good price than if for a consumer that you don't have the best, a competitive price for. So you can use it to help influence your kind of ongoing nurture campaign as well.
Absolutely. And I think too, there's an additional use, especially for independent agents, right? If a prospective consumer comes in and let's say they have a score, and I'll break this down a little bit, like Jaimie's scoring on the First Interpreter product by carrier ranges 1 through 4, right? 1 is not a very competitive position for that particular carrier, and a 4 is a very competitive position for that carrier. But independent agents represent more than one carrier. So I would submit to you too that a use case that we're working on developing this product for, to use for independent agents is, what carrier should they start with first? Independent agents have, comparative raters and things like that. And most independent agents will tell you those things don't function very well. And so they often have to bridge those quotes over to the carrier's website anyway. So if, you're bidding on a consumer and, you represent, National General and Safeco and Progressive, and you know that the highest score out of those 3 for that particular consumer is Progressive, that would seem like a logical place to start as an independent agent. So I think that's an additional use case. But, the traditional use case too, I think even if you represent one carrier as a captive agent, right? If you're an Allstate, a State Farm, a Farmers agent, why would you buy a lead that you're very uncompetitively priced against? You should not. And
or bid very little for it.
Or bid very little for it. Yeah. Right. So it's like, okay, maybe
I
would buy this for $1.
But because in 6 months, you may be competitive for that consumer.
Exactly.
So if you have the rights to continue marketing to a consumer over time, then this data can be useful on an ongoing basis.
That's very true. That's very true. And I would say that, as an early adopter of this important technology, right? I'm here and I'm sitting here And I tell people this all the time because some people will say, Peter's crazy, he's wearing a doctor's coat here. Like, I'm doing this because I am trying to gather attention, not only to build my business, but to drive change in this system. And I think that by being an early adopter of this technology, and we're going to make sure a lot of people see this podcast, Jaimie, that it forces our competitors to use this technology too. And it forces them, when agents are going to be calling them and saying, hey, what's the first interpreter score for this particular lead for the carrier I represent? This should be something that agents are demanding from who they're buying leads from. And if you're not working with an aggregator or a publisher or whoever you're buying leads from that provides you with this data, the question is why? Why are they not providing this to you? I view this, will be a table stakes thing, much like Jornaya is on the compliance end, within the short term, because, Jaimie, I'm going to help force it that way because this is a value to the agents that I want to help, right? I want to help the small business owners. These are my people, and I respect them. And I tell people this all the time. I respect small business insurance agents for a lot of reasons, but most importantly, unlike the carriers and unlike the huge mega agencies that are private equity financed, these people are mortgaging their family's financial future building these businesses, right? They're putting up their own capital and their own savings when they start an agency from scratch. They should be given every opportunity to be successful in this, and nothing should be held back. And it's a choice, like everything else in life. You have a choice to work with lead providers who are providing you with these value adds, or you can choose to work with, as I like to call them, the usual suspects who aren't providing you with that. And listen, if those vendors decide to use first interpreter and provide that score, some would say, Peter, that's worse for you because now you have more competition. I'm all for competition because I'm a competitive person and I want there to be competition, and I think that that's great. But more importantly, I'm all for more people having access to more information that's going to help them make valuable marketing decisions, and that's what this tool does. Knowing what carrier or what consumer is competitive for your carrier or carriers that you represent, that's huge. And you're doing it in a more thoughtful way than filtering, Jaimie. So in my mind, what I often, suggest to my clients is, instead of filtering a list of zip codes that might change, one day this zip code's, competitive for your carrier, then 7 months later it's not. Instead of you doing that work, let's let Jaimie and First Interpreter do that work. That is the business they built. And they will know in real time if that, as those changes happen. And we know those changes are happening rapidly, right, Jaimie?
Yeah, knowing in real time before you decide to spend time and money on a lead is the key, right? So the agent, needs to have some understanding that this is a safe environment. It's easy to tap into it, and it provides a really quality source of new business at the right economics. If you can do all those things, you're going to attract a lot of agents. I think the challenge is also, so there are really three agency camps. One is agents who they buy leads all the time. It's an important part of their their agency growth. The second camp is agents who have tried leads before and thought they were awful and said, this is a terrible way to try to grow. It's time consuming. It's too expensive. They've given up, if you will. They've been burned. And then there's a third that have never tried it before at all. So I think those the second and third camps are the ones that I think are offer a great amount of opportunity for you because you're really growing the market. And obviously the first camp's going to migrate to you as well, because the advantage that you have in creating this this kind of new way of helping local agents grow their business is going to appeal. And one of the advantages you have is some of these lead sellers aren't in the same position as you are to make these, some would consider radical changes, right? To helping the consumer and the agent, find each other in a more efficient, effective, safe way, because they're focused on, quarterly financial results. and growth, and they have to meet certain revenue and profit requirements, and to do some radical kind of re-engineering, if you will, of their ecosystem simply is impossible, because they have other pressures to grow revenues and profits, and changing their ecosystem in a way that could potentially reduce revenue near term is just not an option for them. Yeah. Now, longer term, it would help them, because you wouldn't be selling the lead to everybody that would buy it. You're selling it to the right companies and agents who will over time recognize you for having higher quality and pay more per lead. So over time, it evens out and probably would even benefit you. But near term, it would be a big hit, and they just can't do that. So I think that's an advantage that Lead Clinic has to really make a difference here.
Yeah, and listen, I sympathize with the folks that are in that position, and I am not one to say that like everyone in the lead generation space is a bad person or a scam artist or anything like that. And I know a lot of insurance agents feel that way, but there's a lot of good people here, and I think I said that on the very like preview of Lead Clinic podcast here, is like the most exciting part for me is to bring good people from the lead generation ecosystem onto this show, like Jaimie. And, look, the large, publicly traded or private equity backed, lead aggregators, I understand from the perspective they're in. That's not the situation that I'm in. I'm not looking to put anyone out of business. I'm not looking to do anything, but I think I am here to make everyone focus on the long game, because I think that's just smart business. But I understand that not everyone, and there are outside pressures, whether, the financiers or, Wall Street, whoever it may be, to hit those short-term goals. And short-term goals are important, but playing the long game has always benefited me in life. And I think it will continue to benefit me in both life and in business. But playing that long game and providing this value is going to help, because it just makes sense. Why, it's a waste of time and human resources in an insurance agency to be quoting clients that you have no shot to win. And if we can tell you that early enough and not waste your money on them, that's great. There's a place. Insurance is a differentiated marketplace. Progressive doesn't target the same clients as Allstate, and they don't target the same as State Farm, and they don't target the same as Chubb, and they don't target the same as National General. It's finding the right home for the consumer, and it makes a better consumer experience. And we're all consumers of different things ourselves, right? I want to have the best experience when I buy something on Amazon. I want to have the best experience when I go to a movie theater and watch a movie. I want to have the best experience in all of those things. So why wouldn't we want consumers who are shopping for insurance to have a great experience too? And I think that this product really does that, and really, is the gasoline that's going to accelerate, lead generation working for more agents that it sometimes hasn't worked for before. So it's an incredible product, Jaimie, and we're proud to really, be one of the early adopters. And I think that it helps Lead Clinic, it helps the Lead Clinic clients, and it helps the end consumer user as well. So thinking about all of that, it's a very meaningful product, and we're proud to be working with you. And we're also proud, right? We share the scoring data, with the end agent too, so they know. It's not just Peter saying it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's, we're showing you verifiably, this is, and I mean, listen, anyone could always say, well, Peter, it's your computer platform, you could just make it up. I'm sitting here going on this podcast. I'm telling everyone, like, transparency is the name of the game. It would be devastating to my reputation for anything like that to happen. But insurance agents are a skeptical bunch, as I know. I am one, and I'm very skeptical myself. Transparency is going to win the game here. And I also would say, Jaimie, is we're working together on a different use case for Lead Clinic that we're not going to go into on this particular podcast, or I'm sorry, different use case for First Interpreter with Lead Clinic that we're not going to go into on this podcast, but you'll definitely be back to kind of as we debut that product, which will be hopefully by the end of 2023 here, if not early 2024. But I think that will be a game changer as well and all powered by First Interpreter. This is an amazing product and platform. And I think, Jaimie, what everyone's going to want to know, the insurance agents out there, are how do you know what carrier a consumer is going to be competitive with? How are you able to make that decision?
It's a great question. The technology that powers our competitive position score metrics is a partner company of ours called Quadrant. And Quadrant's been around for 34 years now. And what Quadrant does is they pull rate filings from every carrier who is doing business in every state for auto and the home is broken out to single family, condo, and renters. They pull those rate filings, and they're basically taking the rate filings and kind of formulating their rating algorithm based on that. So that becomes, a specific carrier's auto rating algorithm in California, let's say. And anytime that carrier updates their rates in California and gets them approved, Quadrant grabs that rate filing approval and adjusts the rating algorithm. So at any given moment in time, the rates that the rating algorithm are giving for that specific carrier are always ones that are live and approved today. So imagine doing that for 70 to 80% of the market in every state for auto and condo renters and single family homes. It's thousands of carrier state combinations. And as you can imagine, recently, carriers are making a lot of rate changes. So the team at Quadrant has been extra busy pulling those updates and making sure that the rates are accurate and up to date. So at any rate, Quadrant has that rating engine for all the top carriers and some of the medium-sized ones in every state for auto and home. And First Interpreter has an exclusive license to that rating engine to power our data products. It takes just a few inputs, no PII, and we query the rating engine in real time, and then it calculates the rates for all the top carriers in that state. And then based on who the customer is, if it's a marketplace, the marketplace is using that to curate the offering. If it's a specific carrier, the carrier then knows that they're competitive position against all the top players. All that happens within a second or two, and up front. So intuitively makes perfect sense, right? If you have a competitive price, you're going to do better than if you don't. The only question, I got this from everybody early on. Every time I have this conversation with somebody new, and you asked it too, is how do you know the rates are accurate? Well, that's the key, right? If the rates aren't accurate, then the data has no value. But what we've learned and what we thought going in, because Quadrant does a very good job of on accuracy of rates, we found early and often with our prospects and customers that the data is very predictive and therefore has a lot of value.
And it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And you guys are doing a wonderful job of really, breaking this down daily. And something you said in there, Jaimie, that I think is really important is this is the time, right? This is the time more so, I think, that any time in my history in insurance that rates are changing very frequently, right? Because of the inflationary environment, the higher frequency and severity of automobile accidents, carriers are making rapid changes. We've seen, Progressive pull out of marketing over the past few weeks. We've seen all kinds of really interesting things that haven't always happened before. But this is the time to be leveraging this, in my mind. And it sounds like you see it the same way, right?
Yeah, it's really it's such a dynamic, interesting time right now. If you have a prospect in a specific zip code for auto today and you're very competitive, tomorrow you might not be competitive at all because of the carrier rate changes that are happening around you. So at any given moment in time, you could have a different answer to the question, am I competitive or not?
Yeah.
And as you know, that varies from consumer to consumer. Every prospect is unique and gets a unique price. And a lot of things drive that, right? Location, geographics, demographics, risk characteristics, et cetera. So every consumer is unique. And at this moment in time, you could potentially have a different answer to what is my competitive position than a month from now or 6 months from now, just because everything is changing so rapidly around us.
It is.
With the frequency of rate changes, mostly going up, right? So,
yeah. Yep.
And once that settles down a little bit, it's still really important because efficiency will be even more important going forward for carriers and agents than ever before. Because,
Absolutely.
we're in an environment now where pretty much nobody's profitable. I mean, not even Progressive. I think that their quarterly earnings weren't that great recently.
No.
So once everybody kind of, we kind of climb out of the low end of the cycle with respect to rate adequacy, everybody's going to be focused on efficiency. And if you can be efficient in your marketing, even more so than you were before, that's really important and could be a game changer. And what we're trying to accomplish basically is with our important partnerships like Lead Clinic and you, Peter, and your team, we're trying to take that level of inefficiency in the marketing equation where you talk with the consumer and you give them a price and they're like, oh, it's too high. Well, it's a waste of my time. It's inefficient, right? It's time and money that you've wasted. We won't eliminate that, but we can help reduce that. So rather than, 8 out of 10 times, somebody doesn't buy from you because of price. If that's 7 out of 10, I mean, that's a lot of mony right there. And that's a lot of time. Savings. So if we can kind of reduce that inefficiency in the marketplace, that's going to be important. It's important now, and it's going to be even more important going forward when everybody is rate adequacy and rate adequate, and they're trying to grow profitably. There's going to be more focus on that part of the equation, efficiency, than ever before. So things that you're doing at Lead Clinic that help your agents identify the highest intent, TCPA compliant, price competitive prospects is going to be really, really important. And as a result, I think you're going to have a lot of migration to your platform. A lot of agents are going to hear about it, learn about it, and want to be a part of it. And that'll be great for Lead Clinic and your agent customers and the consumers. But I think it's also going to be important for the ecosystem because you're going to be partnering, whether you know it or not, at any given moment in time with some of the other lead generators, right? So because you're delivering a better quality lead, you're going to be able to bid more for leads.
Exactly.
Right? So everybody who's trying to sell leads in this ping post aggregation ecosystem are going to see, oh, Lead Clinic can bid 10 and everybody else is bidding 8. Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, it's because you do a better job of matching that consumer with the right insurance provider. And as a result, everybody in the ecosystem should benefit from what you're doing.
That is exactly the goal, Jaimie, is that it helps everybody. It makes the whole system more efficient. And listen, for the insurance agents out there today, if the current aggregator that you're buying from, or lead generator you're buying from, isn't have this solution, right? We do. It's in the marketplace today. You're able to get access to it. Give us a call. We'd love to earn your business, and I think that the First Interpreter product and Jaimie is a key portion of the value that Lead Clinic delivers to our clients. Jaimie, thank you for joining us today. I really, truly appreciate it. Like I said, I alluded to earlier in this episode, we're going to have you back very soon talking about our new use case that we have underway for the First Interpreter data. And I'm looking forward to debuting that, but also I'm looking forward to talking to insurance agents every day about how this solution and the other technology solutions that we deploy at Lead Clinic can really be a differentiator. Thanks for joining us, Jaimie. Thanks, everyone, for watching this episode. And please reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd love to answer them for you, whether it's specific to First Interpreter or any part of your lead process in general. Thank you for tuning in.